The other thing we were saying, sorry,
no,
is that, look, there's this beautiful shear, you know, this line. We think that because there weren't thwarts holding this open, that this middle third from about here to here has kind of compressed itself again a little bit, went back to more of the shape it had before it was steamed. Certainly not entirely, but you can see this line runs out, right? And then it kind of flattens out right here. You can be pretty sure that that wasn't there. There's a sensibility of this really fair shear when it's steamed out, and probably when it was new, it didn't have these little bit of parallel sides. That parallel sidedness is good for teaching about how you carve it, because in a log, you know, it has parallel sides. You can't make it wider than it is. Then you steam it open, and that's how you get these nice lines. Okay, you can see I'm excited about it.
Any more questions for me?
Yeah, ask questions for Kenneth.
Yeah, no. See, I'm just going, oh.
Well, so did they put something on the outside of the canoes, or do you? To sort of make it more rugged, more than, you know, when you're beaching them, it's sort of more resistant? I mean, is there a resin, or is there anything that goes? I
mean, they're burnt and oiled.
Burnt and oiled.
The burning helps harden the surface, you know, toughens up the surface. It also, in cedar, it helps draw the oil towards the surface, so it probably helps in sealing it. And then you oil the heck out of it. I mean, the color on this is just dead natural from burning and oiling.
This one is in extraordinary good shape. When I go to museums, I always, if I have access to their collection, I always want to see whatever canoes they have. And usually they're checked, or they're broken, they're falling apart, they're cracked down. And it may be from use that they got one that was old and abandoned. But this one is, in terms of the ones I've seen, which isn't that many, this one is in really good shape.
For sure.
So, and it does, when you come and look at it, look at the light. This is a real, for me, it's a really neat thing, is that you can see the edge marks are still visible along. They may be visible over here, but I'm standing over here. You can still see, remember that one photograph that I was showing, where somebody was sitting down and they're edging, and you can see those marks all along the inside where the maker was doing the final shaving it out, or maybe reworking a little bit of repair or something like that. It's nice set of edge marks. So, but this is that small water, still water, bringing back roots, bringing back ducks, bringing back whatever.
You know, maybe
other questions that Tony can answer?
Do a lot of the other cedar canoes have that fur protection?
All of them.
All of them?
All of them. Most of the time on a big canoe, well, I shouldn't say all of them, because there are probably examples of small rigs that don't. But you know, this is kind of remarkable, because it is this other kind of class of canoe. You know, there's these different classes of canoes, like a gathering canoe or a seal hunting canoe or a whaling, whatever kind of that whaling canoe, whatever. But they pretty much all have that built on. Most of the time, they aren't built on in a way that you wouldn't see it at all. I mean, this is really pretty cool. The one over at Fort Clatsop, inside again, if you looked at it from the inside, you wouldn't really see it. If you just took a cross section, you'd see it because there's a line there. But it is very finely integrated, whatever, to it. But if you get up here to the stern, here's this nice stern piece sitting here, it runs out, and that cap just falls off. It's just obvious what it is. You know exactly that it's an addition. But yeah, all the canoes, the majority of canoes, and this is probably one that helps prove it, even the small rigs had that. Because it needs it. That's how you get longevity.
Was it usually done fur?
Yeah, fur. I mean, I'm guessing it's fur, but it sure looks like fur up there. You know. What we were imagining is, you know, another use for a canoe like this is like, say, the mouth of the Skamakaway River, where you'd just be needing to run a seine net out, or you're maybe picking up a set net or something, or just, you know, just pulling a net one guy. You know, it's a really good size for that kind of thing.
lots and lots of
Yeah.
small jobs.
So not necessarily, Tony, a woman's canoe, which that was kind of the information that I was given about this one. So just smaller size, it would be in smaller screen.
I mean, I think more typically probably a woman's or kid's canoe, but not probably by no means exclusively. You know, I mean, there's this great Lewis and Clark story of would be like a seal hunting size or more canoe with women just with a pile of fish in it and coming to Lewis and Clark's camp to trade some of that fish. So I don't think there was a gender designation exactly. I mean, I'm sure the very little made for the lakes canoes are probably pretty much just owned by women, and you can be sure that there were taboos from the owners associated with how it was used or who was using it. So
Early accounts of people taking trips in which paddlers have been in, and sometimes the person in the back was male, because the crews might be mixed. One, tell the crowd this not directly, but when I was doing research on this several years ago, I was trying to get estimates for speed, and the typical speeds that the canoes would get. And so I read a great many accounts of canoe trips, and I began to encounter a pattern, and especially when it was written by a Euro-American or Euro-Canadian, in which if people were in a hurry, they would get in the canoe and then they would just go, and they might stop after 8 hours and have a meal, and then they would go, and it was just 30 hours. Boom, 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 boom. But if they weren't in a hurry like that, the people would paddle a mile, 100 yards, and then they would stop and they would talk. They would talk about what they were seeing, they would talk about the water, they would tell stories. There's a feature over there, 2 or 3 stories would be told about it, and then they would start again, and they would paddle for a while, maybe only 100 yards, maybe longer, and they would stop and they would talk again. And the thing that I began to notice, because I thought, oh, that's an interesting rhythm of travel, is that the guys, the Europeans in the boat, were beginning to go nuts. And you could see them in their account hauling out their railroad watches thinking, and so the rhythm of this trip, because they were in a hurry to get there. And I was telling my wife Jane about this on our way up to it, and she was suddenly realized, well, if you traveled with her dad, they grew up in Northern California, and out in this old Ford, you drive through a logging road in Northern California, you get the same thing. You drive along, and after a little while, you stop and tell you a story about the place. So there's this. So it's the same rhythm. It's not necessarily an Indian rhythm, but it's a real clear rhythm of people who are really so deeply enmeshed in their landscape. And an important part of that is talking about it, telling stories, reviewing it, and enriching that landscape as you move through it. But the part that I thought was funny, again, was on the one hand, there's a crew of people who are stopping and doing that, and the guy who paid for the trip was looking at his repeater watch thinking, I'm never going to get there. And 3 different accounts, one from Alaska, one from Vancouver, and one from Seattle, and the same thing. So that rhythm of trips was pan-coastal. That's how people moved. If they were in a hurry, they moved. If they weren't in a hurry, then you get these very relatively slow but very rich trips.
James Swan laments the same thing at Willapa Bay.
Yeah.
Traveling with chinook.
Yeah.
Frustrated by just like. So I think he says he's not even sure exactly why, but all of a sudden everybody just takes off and paddling like mad and digging hard and going for it, and then